Okay.
I like that.
Make sure it's proper.
Everybody's all uptight in LA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it aimed properly?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I forgot
Although-
my iPad. Okay, be right back.
Uh-huh.
What is that little gray thing?
This one on this corner is adapter.
A what?
An adapter. It's probably the India one.
It hasn't.
Yeah, it's
been
from
there
India.
before.
Yeah, I'm not sure why he's using it actually.
I think he said he's gonna get another one.
No.
For the microphone.
Did you read yesterday about Srila Bhakti Vaibhav Puri Maharaj? Nice. And did you read also about Sri Narahari Thakur?
We did not.
He's the godbrother of Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, most intimate godbrother. Narahari Da. They called him the mother of the Gaudiya Math. And yesterday was also his appearance or disappearance day.
Disappearance?
Okay.
It was yesterday in India, and I think it was today.
No, it was yesterday here.
Oh.
Yeah, it was on the calendar for yesterday. Hare Krishna. Okay, we are. It's aiming properly?
Yes.
Jai Suparikar Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandhar Hari Shri Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Jiu Ki Jai Jai Shri Shri Radha Govinda Gopinath Madan Mohan Jiu Ki Jai Jai Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Sudarshan Chakra Jiu Ki Jai Jai Shri Giriraj Govardhana Ki Jai Shri Shri Nitai Gauranga Ki Jai Shri Nrsimha Bhagavan Ki Jai Shri Lesi Bhaktivedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai Shri Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Bhakti Dayata Madhav Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Srila Gaurkishore Das Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Srila Sachidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai Vaishnav Sarvabhaum Shri Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Gauri Vedanta Chari Baladev Vibhushan Prabhu Ki Jai Shri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur Ki Jai Srila Narottam Srinivas Yavananda Prabhu Trai Ki Jai Shri Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunath Sada Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai Srila Sarup Damodar Roy Ramanandari Gaur Parsad Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sibaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopi Govardhan Dvara Shavadhatmaka Shri Braj Mandala Dhama ki jai, Shri Shyama Kunda Radha Kunda Yamuna Ganga, Tulsi Bhakti Devi ki jai, Shri Shri Radha Govinda Radha Gopinath Radha Madan Mohan Jiu ki jai, Shri Shri Radha Gokulananda Radha Shyama Sundar, Radha Raman Radha Damodar Jiu ki jai, Jai Shrimati Lalita Vishaka Adi Ashtasaki Brinda ki jai, Shri Rupa Manjari Rati Manjari Adi Manjari Brinda ki jai, Shrimati Brinda Devi ki jai, Shrimati Purnamasi Yogamaya Devi ki jai, Shri Gopi Swar Mahadeva ki jai, Sarva Vishta Pradata Giriraj Govardhana ki jai, Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Grantara Shri Chaitanya Charitamritam ki jai, Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Sudarshan Chakra Jiyo ki jai, Shri Jagannath Puri Kshetra Dham ki jai, Bhakti Vigna Vinashana Shrina Shringadev ki jai, Bhakta Prabhu Shri Prahlad Maharaj ki jai, Charu Dham Charu Sampradaya, Charu Acharya ki jai, Akara Matraj, Shri Chaitanya Mat ki jai, और Ananya Shaka Mat Samuha ki jai, Shri Vishva Vaishnava Raj Sabha ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Shri Bhuvana Pavana Harinama Sankirtana ki jai, Shri Bhuvana Mangala Harinama Prabhu ki jai, Hare Krishna Maha Mantra ki jai, Shri Sachinandana Gaura Hari ki jai, Shri Nityananda Prabhu ki jai, Shri Pancha Tattva ki jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuram Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Mahabhadanaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namni Gaura Chishe Namah Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vrindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Keshavasya Cha Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavachai Namo Namah Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. First of all, I'm offering my unlimited Dandavat Pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipful beloved Gurudev Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Astatara Sata Sri Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada. Then I'm offering my same unlimited Dandavat Pranams, my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipful beloved Siksha Gurudevs Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Statara Sata Sri Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj and Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Asto Tarasata Sri Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. My Dandavat pranams to Srila Bhakti Vaibhav Puri Goswami Maharaj, Srila Narahari Das Thakur Ki Jai, all Gaudiya Vaishnavas, my Sri Rupa Nuga, and my Dandavat to all the Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. So I wasn't so well yesterday and today, but now I have enough energy to sit here for an hour. Now, the last thing that we're reading about, oh, that's right, we did a summary of the whole Upadeshamrita. Were you here? No. No, you missed that day. We did a summary of the whole 11 verses of the Upadeshamrita, which was good, valuable at that point in time. Now we're back to the continuing narration of the purport of Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur on the last item of the 6 favorable activities. You know what that is? The last item of the 6 favorable activities for bhakti? What's the 6 favorable activities for bhakti? Utsahan, Nishchayan, Dhairyat, Tat Karma Pravartanat, Sangatyaga Sato Vritte, Sadvir Bhakti Prasidati. So now I'm realizing that I should have been drilling everyone every single class and every single day for the first 3 verses of Sri Upadeshamrita, because you still don't know it. And this is so important, I can't even... These verses are so important. It's practically next to understanding the Mahamantra, Upadeshamrita, so important. So how are we going to do this? Let's make a plan right now, because there's not that many days left. I had so many ideas. We could have one of those, not chalkboards, but
Pinboard or something.
the whiteboards that we,
Whiteboard.
you know, or we can print up the 11 verses with the Sanskrit, the transliteration, the synonyms and the verse. And every day from now on, we're going to chant. Otherwise, how are you going to ever learn it? And these, especially the first 3 verses, they're short. They're not long. They're short. But you have to study it. You have to learn it. You have to understand the synonyms. At least for these 3 verses, where they have the 6, 6, 6, and then the 4th verse has another 6 items. 6 times 4 is 24. What's the best way? You're a university PhD professor.
Just your best way of memorizing things. I write things down. I have my students write them down. Quizzes. Have to memorize, have to think about each of them.
As you're writing it down, you mean?
Yeah, and go over each one, repetition.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, what do you recommend for what we want to accomplish right now?
Learning the word for word for each. It's the learning what each term and each verse means.
Right.
And so when you say the verse, you automatically, if you don't know the whole translation, you at least know these are the 6 favorable or something.
Yes. Yeah, that's the main point, is I want everyone to know the actual items. 6 unfavorable items and 6 favorable items. I want you to know the Sanskrit and the English. The Sanskrit and its translation into English, the synonym. Okay? You have to know that. Like right now, if I asked you, what are the 6 favorable activities for bhakti? From where you are standing right now in terms of your familiarity with the verse, what would you be able to say? Would you be able to name some of them? Some of the 6? He says yes. What about you?
Maybe.
Okay, let's try.
I'm trying to think about it right now.
Yeah, okay.
No.
Not even one.
Good company. Good association.
Okay.
Enthusiasm.
I'll give you a plus mark for that one. Yeah.
Enthusiasm.
Yes, you get, that's 2.
Say louder.
What?
He said enthusiasm.
Performing activities that are favorable to bhakti. Isn't that there? No.
That's not Katha karma?
Well, yeah, you can say, okay. Not favorable to bhakti. All those, well, yeah. What are those activities? They're the 64 limbs of bhakti. They're the 9 limbs of bhakti. They're actual bhakti. Tat tat karma pravartanat. Okay, what else?
Not overeating.
No.
No. Well, that's in the previous verse, right?
Well, yeah, that's in the previous verse. But that's not the whole meaning of the word ati ahara. Ahara means to eat, but it's not only referring to eating.
Over collecting.
Yeah, but that's all in that same word, ati ahara. Okay, so that's it.
Over collected.
Yeah.
Speaking about Krishna.
I know you're reading it. You're reading it. Now it's in the songbook too, isn't it?
Yes.
But it doesn't have the synonyms there, does it?
No.
Okay. Do you have Upadeshamrita at your house, the book?
In LA.
Do you have it on your phone?
I could probably get it, yeah.
Not probably. You absolutely can get it.
From Pure Bhakti, I assume it's
Yeah, you can download it for free from Pure Bhakti. And you can also download for free the folio, which is very valuable to have. Prabhupada's, it's called the Veda Base folio. You should have that on your phones. I mean, this is invaluable. Now that we have the facility to actually carry all this with us, it takes a few minutes only to download it onto your phone. You have all of Prabhupada's books, all of Prabhupada's lectures. You have many numerous other books by various acharyas just on one app. Okay? And then there's also, you can download Gurudev's books in the form of the Bhakti Base, it's called. I have it on my phone. Both of these apps.
What's the first one you said?
Veda Base, one word. Vedabase. Bhakti Vedanta Veda Base. Like that, but you just type in Veda Base. So you should either have it on your phone or bring it in hard copy. But you need to do that. You need to do that. I'm telling you all so that you can benefit fully. Because after all, if you're coming over a period of weeks to Upadeshamrita class and you still don't know the verse, the simple verses, it kind of like, I don't know what to say about it. But I was just thinking about it today. It's actually partly my fault because I should have done this from the very beginning, just like we always did in the ISKCON classes where we have it written on a board and then everybody chants it together, you know. But if you do that every single day, it's very easy actually to memorize 8 verses, 11 verses, if you do it every day repeatedly, you see. So, like that's how we first learned to seek Shastakam of Lord Chaitanya in our very first days in the temple. Just every day. we would all repeat it together after Mangalartik and Tulsi Puja. Then we'd sit, we'd repeat the Sanskrit, and then we'd say the English. And that's how we learned it. And then later on, then I had to do my own personal study to study the meaning of every word. You know what I mean? But I mean, there are certain things that are just so utterly, utterly basic. You absolutely have to learn those. If you're a devotee of Krishna and Lord Chaitanya in the modern age, with all of our acharyas giving hundreds of books, at least these things you have to learn. You know what I'm saying? And it's not going to happen. I mean, it can partly happen just by being in the class and we're all doing it together. Okay? It can happen partly that way. But if you're not always in the class, which you guys are down in LA a lot of the times, you know, then there's also the method of having, like, I could read it, or I could in class record my reading of it to the devotees with the devotees responding. Like, you know, Vacho Vegam, Manasakroda Vegam, and all the devotees say, Vacho Vegam, Manasakroda Vegam. And then after we read the verse, then I read the English and Sanskrit synonyms, okay? I read that and everybody responds. Then I read the translation, and then everybody reads the translation. So if I made a recording like that in the class, we've all got phones. Phones can easily record. You can, if you don't have a recording program on your phone, you can download it, you know. Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Radha Govinda Jiva Ki Jai. Yeah. So if I record that, which will probably be I don't know, maybe 15-minute recording or something. If you guys sat down together and you participated in that with the recording, you'd learn the verses, you know? You'd learn the verses. So does that sound like a good idea? Is that something you'd be interested in doing?
Yeah, sounds like a good idea.
Okay. So if I did that...
Yeah. Because sometimes I don't know exactly how to pronounce things, but if I can hear it first...
That's
then...
essential, yeah. That's why Prabhupada taught us to do it this way.
Yeah.
You know, and then after many years of doing it, you kind of naturally learn Sanskrit pronunciation. It's not that difficult. But if you're just trying to do it on your own, it's more difficult. But if you're doing it in a congregation and always pronouncing the words, then it's very easy to learn how to pronounce Sanskrit properly. Of course, there are some people that even after many years, they kind of just can't get it correctly, but it's like passable, you know. So, all right, so we will think about that. But I feel kind of defeated, to tell you the truth. It's a defeat for me in my efforts to spend hours and hours and hours over a period of weeks and months discussing Upadeshamrita, and then the people who are attending my class don't even know the verses. I'm telling you, that's how I feel. So not just for you, but also for me, my sense of fulfillment that I've done my job properly. You know, I've served properly to the devotees to teach them these verses. So you have to cooperate with it. Okay, so like I say, it's still my fault because I should have done some system. From the very beginning, I should have done that. But I was focusing in a different way. I was focusing more in explaining all the meanings and reading Bhakti Vinod Thakur and going deeply into it, you know.
It's been very useful.
Well, of course it is, but I'm saying if you don't know the verses, after coming out of a 2 or 3 month course of Upadeshamrita, I mean, they'd never allow something like that to happen in any university. If they were studying a book that has 11 verses, I don't care what language it's in, and they're studying it for 3 months, you know, there would absolutely be a requirement that you have to have memorized such and such. Like if you take a foreign language class, which I did in high school, Spanish, Latin, So many tests are there. You have to remember things. You have to remember the meaning of words and everything. But what I see is that in our devotee community, they're not very studious. They're not very intent upon learning, memorizing. Because memorizing is necessary to some extent, One doesn't have to be a genius to remember hundreds of shlokas, but basic shlokas. And like I also talked about this a couple of months back, about Gita shlokas, the essential Gita shlokas, but it didn't go anywhere. You guys were gone for a whole month, and this and that, right? But I think we should make a resolution right now, because you live up here, you're coming and going. I'm up here, at least for now, looks like for a while. So we should make a program that we're actually going to accomplish this, And I mean, if I looked at YouTube and I typed in Bhagavad Gita shloka recitation or something like that, I bet you there's dozens of programs that we could select from of people who are learning the Bhagavad Gita, or maybe even Upadeshamrita. All right, so we'll make a final decision and then do it. So what we're studying now is the last item in the verse of the 6 favorable activities for bhakti. And I'm going to read that verse with the synonyms so that you both can get started on it. And whoever else is listening in on Facebook. All right, where is our nectar of instruction? Index, verse 3 from Prabhupada's. See, I got this on my iPad. It's right there. Boom.
Very practical.
Yeah, and the same thing you can download on your phone. Here, I'll show you. See this here? This icon? Yes. Look. You see this one? It has a tilak mark?
Yes.
Okay, that's called Pocket Veda. I have two programs on here. Pocket Veda, which when you have it on your thing and you press on it, then it goes to the last page that you had. And then up here, they got this little book icon. You press it, it has the list, like a little counter thing, like that. It has the list, and then you just press go, and you're immediately at the book. You can look up any verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita within 5 seconds. Okay? That's pretty darn convenient. So that one is called Pocket Veda. Okay? Then there's another which is called Veda Base.
Yeah.
Okay? And that Veda Base is everything.
Yeah, my dad has that one on his tablet.
Yes. Tablet, computer, phone, you can put it on any device. Okay? So that Veda Base is unlimited. It's a little different than the Pocket Veda. The Pocket Veda is what I use for real quick, boom, 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 boom. Like if I'm reading Srimad Bhagavatam, or just like here, we've been reading Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He's quoting verse after verse after verse after verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita, right? So when I'm just reading it on my own, I immediately go to my other device and boom, I go to Pocket Veda and I look up that verse. And then I also start to read what's before that verse and what's after it, the whole context of the verse. So that way it becomes very, very interesting, very interesting. So those are the 2 programs for Prabhupada's books. And then on this one, because I got a very, very old, this is actually the very first iPad.
Yes.
It's like 10 years old, And this one's about 5 years old. And this one has Bhakti Base, this purple icon there. That's all of Gurudev's books. Bhakti Base. So those 3, you download, okay? Yes, indeed. No. Okay. So now, you can repeat after me. Utsahan,
Utsahan,
Nishchayad,
Nishtayat,
Dhairyat,
Daryat,
Tattat,
Tatat,
Karma,
Karma,
Pravartanat,
Pravartanat,
Sangha,
Sangha,
Tyagat,
Tyagat,
Sato,
Sato,
Vritte,
Vritte,
Sadbir,
Satir,
Bhakti,
Bhakti,
Prasiddhyati,
Prasiddhyati,
Utsahan, Nishchayat, Dhairyat.
Utsahan, Nishtayat, Daryat.
Okay, see, that's why we need it visual. This is really meant to be done visually. Because also when you're looking at it visually, it goes deeper into your memory banks. Because you're also seeing how it's spelled and all of that. So it goes deeper into your memory banks. When you're only hearing and repeating, it doesn't have the same effect. For word, that's okay. Word for word is okay. But still, when you're reading it along with the recitation, that's when it really sinks in. Okay? So I'm reading the verse, Utsaha Nishchaya Dhairyat Tat Tat Karma Pravartanat Sangatyagat Sato Vritte Sadvir Bhakti Prasiddhyati. So now I'm going to do the word for word. You can repeat after me. Utsahat,
Utsahat,
by enthusiasm.
by enthusiasm.
Nishchayat,
Nishtayat,
by confidence.
by confidence.
Dhairyat,
Daryat,
by patience.
by patience.
Tat Tat Karma,
Tatat karma,
various activities favorable for devotional service.
various activities favorable for devotional service.
Pravartanat,
Pravartanat,
by performing.
by performing.
Sangatyagat,
Sangatyagat,
by giving up the association of non-devotees.
by giving up the association of non-devotees.
Sataha,
Sataha,
of the great previous acharyas.
of the great previous acharyas.
Vrittehe,
Vritehe,
by following in the footsteps.
by following in the footsteps.
Sadbhi,
Sadbi,
by these six.
by these six.
Bhaktihi,
Bhaktihi,
devotional service.
devotional service.
Prasiddhyati,
Prasiddhyati,
advances or becomes successful.
advances or becomes successful.
Okay, now you repeat after me. There are 6 principles
There are 6 principles
favorable to the execution of pure devotional service.
favorable to the execution of pure devotional service.
Number 1,
Number 1,
being enthusiastic.
being enthusiastic.
Number 2,
Number 2,
endeavoring with confidence.
endeavoring with confidence.
Number 3,
Number 3,
being patient.
being patient.
4,
4,
acting according to regulated principles,
acting according to regulated principles,
such as Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu,
such as Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu,
Smaranam,
Smaranam,
hearing, chanting, and remembering Krishna.
hearing, chanting, and remembering Krishna.
Number 5,
Number 5,
abandoning the association of non-devotees.
abandoning the association of non-devotees.
And 6,
And 6,
following in the footsteps of the previous acharyas.
following in the footsteps of the previous acharyas.
These 6 principles
These 6 principles
undoubtedly assure
undoubtedly assure
the complete success
the complete success
of pure devotional service.
pure devotional service.
Good translation, huh?
I've never heard it quite, I feel like I haven't heard it exactly like that.
Well, that's because you're reading different translations, Gurudevs and so forth, you know. Prabhupads are unique in a certain way, you know, because he's writing this for ordinary persons that are not so familiar yet with Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy and so forth. But at the same time, he's also considering his own congregation of his disciples who he's trying to educate, you see. So, and then at the same time, from the scholarly point of view, Prabhupada is also translating. I mean, he's thinking of all these things simultaneously. He even told that, you know. It's very difficult. It takes so much concentration for him to select exactly how he's stating things. And I can tell you, I never tire. It's like such an entertaining thing for me, is to see the way that Prabhupada chooses his words, then to look at the way that Gurudev, you know, chooses his words, and different acharyas, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, you know, because it's never the same. There's always some nuance. There's always some special, you know, emphasis being given in a certain particular way, you know. So this is the first one that any of the Western devotees ever were able to read from the Upadeshamrita, and that was our copy for a few decades until Gurudev's came. And then also Srila Sridhar Maharaj has one, small one like that. And then we have the Bhaktivinoda Thakur for those two verses. This verse and the verse before it. Verses number 2 and 3. And the verse before this one, verse number 2, that one is the 6 principles that are against bhakti. Okay? So now we've done this, and we're going to make some arrangement, and we're going to set ourselves a goal, I would say, probably within 2 months, I think. I was planning to finish this earlier, but we can still work on this whenever we have an evening class. We can do the recitation, okay? And then each of us on our own can also listen to the recording and go over that. You see. Another trick that I used to use is writing it down. This is one of Madhav Maharaj's favorite methods. He used this to memorize so many verses over many, many years while he was cooking with Gurudev, cooking for Gurudev. You know, and he would write a verse and stick it on the wall in the kitchen where he's cooking, and, you know, and he's repeating the verse. I've done that in my car many, many years ago. Like putting it right up there on the dashboard, and as I'm driving, like long distance driving, where you don't, you know, it's not like city driving, but then, you know, I'm glancing at it, and now we have the methods also, which I have used, of, like one time I recorded myself singing, which one was it? The Radha Kripa Kataksha Stavaraj. I recorded myself singing that in the very early period when Gurudev just introduced it. And I remember driving all the way from here down to LA and playing it and repeating it again and again, like that, you know. So anything is very easy to do if you just repeat it, because in Kali Yuga, our memories are not able to catch things and hold them so easily. Some people are better than others, some people are worse. But no doubt about it, if it's repeated again, daily, 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 they say that it, you know, I've heard this before, the studies have been done, that if you want to develop a habit to do something positive, you ever heard this?
Mm-hmm.
You remember how much time it takes?
40 days, was it?
60.
60?
I heard 60.
Really?
I don't know.
That many?
I heard 15.
Yeah, I heard more like that, you know, if you do something, you know, steadily for like 15 days, it becomes a habit. But I'm sure that the longer you continue to do it, then it really, so the 60 days is probably like you'll never be able to forget this for the whole rest of your life.
I heard you can, I don't know where I heard this from, you can put the verse under your pillow at night. And I don't know, but maybe it's just because you pick it up and you look at it in the morning, I don't know.
That's a nice idea. Yeah, I can see how that would be very favorable.
That's
Yeah.
how I used to, I
Write
would
it down.
study for exams like that.
Oh, really? Put it under your pillow and then
I'd
read it
make-
first thing?
Flashcards, and
Oh,
then
yeah.
right before going to bed, when I wake up,
Yeah.
In school with Gopanandini, we had a book
Everything.
for shlokas, and every day we wrote down the shloka we were learning.
Yeah.
And I still have it, so I can just flip through and look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those index card
Yes.
ones that have a spiral notebook. Oh yeah, those are the famous. That's the ones that were our personal shloka books, you know, our own collection of shlokas. Even, you know, like Sajjan Maharaj, I'll use him as an example because he's such a sincere and determined devotee. But, you know, he had a very severe car accident years ago in, I think, the 90s, early 90s or something, or late 80s. And so there was some brain damage was done. He still struggles with that a bit. But I've seen how he keeps this shloka thing, you know, like even years ago, before he even took sannyas, you know, and now he was like, he was feeling himself like, I gotta memorize some verses. He already had done that earlier in his life when he was a brahmachari as well, you know, but now it was more of a challenge, you know. And so, but he managed to do that. So even if persons have some kind of physical handicap, they can overcome that. You know, when were you doing that study? It was a university study?
Yes, a while ago.
When was that?
2 years ago.
Where, here in America?
No, in Germany.
Oh, in Germany.
Yeah.
You went to school there.
Yeah.
In German language?
Yeah, no, it was in English.
In
International business. So it was in English.
Okay. What's your age now?
28.
28. Okay. Did you get a degree?
I did not get a degree. Almost. Very close. I had to come back because our grandma was passing away and
Yeah.
she requested us to come back. So it was just,
Yeah.
I'm finishing now.
Okay. Very good.
It is what
But
it
you're still in high school.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so let's read a little something on this verse. Now, just to remind you, the last item in the list that we just read is Sato Vritte. Say that.
Sato Vritte.
And here it's translated as following in the footsteps of the great previous acharyas. Sato Vritte. That's one of the 6 favorable activities. Sato Vritte. So, and also it's translated as sadhu vritti, the behavior of the pure Vaishnavas, of those sadhus. So this is a long section here. Bhaktivinoda Thakur has been explaining what is that sadhu vritti, sato vritti, following in the footsteps of the previous acharya. Very important. And what he's doing in this long commentary here that we've been going on for days and weeks, you know, that he's telling what Mahaprabhu, what was his behavior. He's citing from all different parts of the Chaitanya Charitamrita for each item. So now I'm going to read, and then you'll see what I'm talking about. So, this section of his purport is titled, The Necessity for Both Householders and Renunciants to be compassionate to others and serve sadhus. Yes. Now, here in this long commentary, Bhaktivinoda Thakur had a whole section about, specifically for sannyasis. Then he had a whole long section for householders. And now he's saying the necessity for both householders and renunciants to be compassionate to others and serve sadhus. These 2 qualities, to be compassionate to others and to serve sadhus, are for all Vaishnavas, right? So here he's saying, one is to constantly endeavor to imbibe all the good qualities necessary to perform bhajan. Let's break that down a little so we can remember. He says, this is to be done. Basically, he's saying this is to be done. One is to constantly endeavor to imbibe all the good qualities necessary to perform bhajan. Now, why would we want to imbibe all these good qualities? What will be our motivation? What will be the need for us to imbibe all kinds of good qualities? He says here.
Perform bhajan.
Yes. That's the reason. Not for any other reason. Our endeavor in life is to perform bhajan to Krishna. And in order to perform bhajan, it's required that one should imbibe all the good qualities necessary. You see? So now he says the behavior of Vaishnavas has been described in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela 772. See what I'm saying? His whole commentary is full of examples of Mahaprabhu himself, things that he spoke, things that he did, things that his associates did, so that you see an actual practical example. So now here it says, in relation to the behavior of Vaishnavas, so this is a verse, 772, Madhya Leela. Mahanubhavir chitter swabhav e hoy. Mahanubhavir chitter swabhav e hoy. Pushpa maya komala kotin vajra moy. Very nice. He says here, the heart of a Vaishnava is soft like a flower and hard like a thunderbolt. Ever heard that before? It's a very famous quotation. Mahanubhavir chitte swabhav e hoy. Pushpamoya komala. Pushpamoya komala means soft like a flower. Pushpa means flower, and komala means soft. And then it is soft like a flower, and also katin vajra moy. Vajra means a thunderbolt, and katin means very hard. So the heart of a Vaishnava is soft like a flower and hard like a thunderbolt. What do you think that means? Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Radha Govinda Ki Jai. Jai Jai Shri Radhe. Now we have to see a practical example of it. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela 839 has also described their compassion, the compassion of the Vaishnavas, right? Mahanta swabhav e tarite pamar, nija karya nahi tabu jan tar ghar. So here's the translation. It is the nature of great personalities, it is their nature, Mahapurushas, great personalities, to visit the homes of the fallen for the sake of delivering them. That's why they do. It is their nature, because their nature is full of compassion. So in doing this, they do not possess even the slightest tinge of selfishness, even the slightest tinge. They're doing it for the sake of uplifting the fallen souls. They're not trying to derive anything personally from that. Understand? This is for the upliftment of the fallen soul, because they're compassionate. So no one can say, oh, they're just going there to get money. Oh, they're just going there to do this. That would be a very big mistake. Because the nature of those pure Vaishnavas has no tinge of selfishness at all. Only they want to give mercy to the fallen and deliver them. Yes. So there's a lot of different things here, but I want to say, because he's not mentioning it here, this point about the heart of a Vaishnava being like as soft as a flower and as hard as a thunderbolt. What does it actually mean? Well, I'll give you an example. Maybe Bhaktivinoda Thakur is going to cite it later on, but he hasn't told it here yet. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he left to take sannyas, and his mother was standing there on the night that he left, like a statue, Mahaprabhu circumambulated her 3 times, paid his obeisances, touched her feet, and went off into the night. What does that require in the heart of a person who's trying to do like that? To take sannyas and leave. It requires 2 things. Great compassion for the conditioned souls. To leave one's own family comforts, wife, children, house, everything, all paraphernalia, is not an easy thing for a conditioned soul. Why do they do that? Well, first of all, they are extremely advanced in bhakti, and their whole heart and soul is now thoroughly absorbed in Krishna. In that condition, they no longer see that continuing in material life is favorable for their advancement toward the ultimate goal of Krishna praying. Or it may be also that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, why did he take sannyas? There's a somewhat of an external reason given in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Did you ever hear that there was a section in Navadvip called the student section, student community, right? And various others, Smarta Brahmins and so forth. And Mahaprabhu had been doing his Harinam Sankirtan movement at that point for at least 8 years, till he was 24 years of age. Right? But there were many critics, and they were not being captured in his network of Krishna praying. And he thought, my purpose in descending was to capture everyone and to give them Krishna praying. But now I see that these persons, they're escaping. They're not being captured because they have decided to have a negative view, right? Criticizing for this or that. All right, then he began to consider. In Vedic culture, right? Everyone in Vedic culture knows this, that it is required that when you see a sannyasi, person in the renounced order of life, that you pay your obeisances. So Mahaprabhu considered, if I take sannyas, renounced order of life, all these persons who are committing very many offenses by disrespecting, now they will be forced to give their respect. And in this way, I can capture them. Actually, he did end up capturing them because after taking sannyas and some years went by, and when he finally returned briefly to Navadvip Dham, millions of people came from all directions. And they were all categories, and especially those who had committed offenses, they were all praying for forgiveness. See? So a soul on a very high level of advancement who feels that now my life should be one-pointed. Our Gurudev, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayana Goswami Maharaj. Of course, he's an exalted personality descending from the higher spiritual plane, but he showed by his own life's example, this is what they do. He left his household life to surrender to his guru at the age of 24. Something 24, 25. And he even had 2 young children. He had an occupation of being a policeman. But when he became so absorbed in Harinam, chanting Harinam, after meeting a devotee named Narottamananda Brahmachari, who later became one of his Siksha gurus, then he became so absorbed he couldn't even go to work in chanting. Completely lost track of time, everything. So, but the main point is that of a great personality, it's their nature, that their heart is very soft, like a petal of a lotus flower, very soft. What is the softness? Their compassionate mood. How they want to help. So their heart is very soft. But if it is required for the purpose of their seva, they can harden their heart like a thunderbolt, especially against atheistic persons. So that's what Bhaktivinoda Thakur has been explaining here. And it is the nature of these great Mahapurushas to visit the homes of the fallen for the sake of delivering them. And in doing this, they do not possess even the slightest tinge of selfishness. Now, the next point is saying how a vow should be taken. Here he's quoting from Madhya Lila, 11th chapter, 4th verse. Prabhu Kahe. Prabhu Kahe means Mahaprabhu said, Kaho tumi, nahi kichu bhoy, jogya hoile koribo, ajogyan hoile noi. So this is from the section in Chaitanya Charitamrita where Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, not only him, but all of the Vaishnavas, in Jagannath Puri, they were trying to convince Mahaprabhu or to try to beg him to give his mercy to the king of Puri, Maharaj Prataparudra. King of Puri, the great, great Vaishnava. He wanted so much to personally meet Mahaprabhu, but Mahaprabhu would not meet with him. You know about that? Mahaprabhu refused. You know why? Why did Mahaprabhu refuse to meet with the king, even though he was a very great Vaishnava?
Because he was a king, and kings are absorbed in politics.
Material.
Yeah. Right. Yes, and Mahaprabhu is a sannyasi. And in Vedic culture, generally, the sannyasis will avoid the association of such materialistic persons. But see, the devotees, they all knew that Maharaj Prataparudra is absolutely most elevated Mahabhagavad Vaishnava, okay? But he happens to be in the role of the king. So Mahaprabhu, they tried. Nityananda Prabhu tried, various other devotees tried, and they were getting pretty fearful to approach Mahaprabhu because sometimes he was even threatening to them. Don't try to convince me. Otherwise, I will leave Puri. Mahaprabhu was telling like this. So, here, now, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is pleading with the Lord to bestow mercy upon King Prataparudra. So then Mahaprabhu, he's sitting with Sarvabhauma, and then he says to him, do not be afraid. Speak. Speak. Because he was hesitant to speak. So Mahaprabhu said, don't be afraid. You speak. And I will do it if it is possible, otherwise not. If it is possible, I will consider, and then I'll do it. Otherwise not. You see? So eventually, actually, he did agree to a particular proposal. You know what that proposal was? He refused to meet with the king personally. This is before the Rath Yatra festival. But he agreed to one thing, and that was suggested by Nityananda Prabhu to Mahaprabhu. That he would meet with the son of the king. Okay? Son of king was young. Probably, it appears that he was probably like 8 or 10 years old or something. Not older than 10, 11, 12, like that, the son of the king. So, and the son of the king was very beautiful. And so the devotees dressed the king, the son of the king, in beautiful dress with turban and everything. Beautiful, beautiful, like Krishna dresses. And then they sent him to Mahaprabhu. And Mahaprabhu, when he saw the son of the king, he was aroused in his ecstatic moods of love for Krishna. And in that mood, he embraced this boy, right? And the boy became overwhelmed with prema, actually, by being embraced by Mahaprabhu. Huh? I don't remember the details of whether or not the boy began to say, Krishna, 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 something. But anyway, the boy, after that, went back to the palace. And when he came into the presence of his father, and then his father embraced him and felt the embrace of Mahaprabhu. Yes. You see, so anyway, this is being cited by Bhaktivinoda Thakur as how a vow should be taken. So here, Mahaprabhu is making like a promise. Okay, you're giving me a proposal. I'll hear it. You tell me your proposal, and then I'll consider, and if it's possible, I'll do it, otherwise not. So this is in relation to that point about taking a vow. And one last point we'll make, and then we can have the arti. One should deal affectionately with Vaishnavas, for by this, Krishna is satisfied. By dealing affectionately with Vaishnavas, Krishna is satisfied. So there's an example from Madhya Lila chapter 11. Prabhu Kohe, Mahaprabhu said, to me, Krishna Bhakata Pradhan. That means you are chief amongst the bhaktas. Tomake je prite kore se bhagyavan. One who is affectionate to you is most fortunate. Now I'd have to look it up. See, this is a case where I'm reading this, then I say, okay, let me go to my pocket Veda, and it will take me about 5 to 10 seconds. Boom. Let's see, Chaitanya Charitamrita. CC, index, go, Madhya Lila, chapter 11. Okay, Madhya 11. And the title of this chapter, okay, Veda Kirtan Pastimes of Mahaprabhu. So then, verse 26. Here I am at verse 26. So what are the verses before that? Before this verse? 11:26. Who's he talking to? See, here it doesn't say. But then when I go to the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it says, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then said, my dear Ramananda Roy. Now if I don't know the context, how can I fully grasp that verse? He says, my dear Ramananda Roy. You are the foremost of all the devotees of Krishna. Therefore, whoever loves you is certainly a very fortunate person. Right? And this is in relation to dealing affectionately with Vaishnavas, because Krishna is very satisfied with this. And that's what Mahaprabhu himself said. Therefore, whoever loves you is certainly a very fortunate person. Krishna is very satisfied. But in what context was that? A few verses before. Then Maharaj Prataparudra very humbly said, I am most fallen and abominable, and I am unfit to receive an interview with the Lord. One's life is successful if one engages in his service. The king then said, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna. He's the son of Maharaj Nanda. He is very merciful, and I hope that in a future birth he will allow me an interview. This is after the devotees have reported back to the king that, I'm sorry, Mahaprabhu still refuses to meet with you, right? So now he's condemning himself. And then Mahaprabhu said to, who's he speaking to? See, that I don't even know. Looks like he's speaking to Ramananda Roy. Yeah, he's speaking to Ramananda Roy, and Ramananda Roy is trying to convince Mahaprabhu, and then he comes back and he tells, sorry, Mahaprabhu's not agreeing. So then he said, then Maharaj Prataparudra, no, this is Ramananda Roy now reporting what the king said when he reported back to him. And he's winning Mahaprabhu's heart over. And then he says, oh my Lord, I mean, this is what the king said. He said that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna, the son of Maharaj Nanda. He is very merciful, and I hope that in a future birth he will allow me an interview. And then Ramananda Roy said, my Lord, I don't think that there is even a fraction of Maharaj Prataparudra's loving ecstasy in me. Then Mahaprabhu said to him, oh, my dear Ramananda Roy, you are the fortunate, you are the foremost of all the devotees of Krishna, and therefore whoever loves you is certainly a very fortunate person. Then Mahaprabhu says, because the king has shown so much love for you, Lord Krishna will certainly accept him. And then he quotes the verse that Krishna told to Arjuna, not in the Gita, in another place. Krishna told this verse to Arjuna. He says, Ye me bhakta jana parta, ye na me bhaktas chate jana, mad bhaktanam cha ye bhaktas, te me bhakta tamamataha. That's a verse that I personally have to memorize. I see it a lot. I say, oh, I haven't memorized it yet. Oh, I haven't memorized it yet. But if I had my little index card book, then I could write that down, okay? So then Mahaprabhu himself is quoting this verse to Ramananda Roy. And he's saying, Krishna is telling to Arjuna, those who are my direct devotees. But it also means those who claim to be my devotees. They say, I'm a devotee of Krishna. Those who are my direct devotees are not actually my devotees. But those who are the devotees of my servant, of my devotee, they are factually my devotees. Right? So, and then he quotes another verse, and then he quotes another verse. He quotes 4 verses in a row. And then all the devotees who were present there as Ramananda Roy was speaking, and then the Mahaprabhu was speaking, all these great personalities, Lord Nityananda, Jagadananda, Mukunda, Brahmananda Bharati, Paramananda Puri, Swarup Damodar Goswami. So then Sri Ramananda Roy, in this meeting, he therefore offered his obeisances to all the Lord's devotees, in particular to the 4 spiritual masters. And thus Ramananda Roy suitably met all the devotees. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu next asked Ramananda Roy, have you already visited the temple of the lotus-eyed Lord Jagannath? And Ramananda Roy replied, I shall now go to visit the temple. Anyway, then it's like, so what I'm doing is I'm showing you that it's one thing to just read this purport, but you will not remember that very well unless you go to that reference in Chaitanya Charitamrita. That's what always happens in my study. I can just tell you this personally as a suggestion. All through the years. And it made it very easy when I had these quick boom, boom, boom. I can just immediately look it up. When you do that, you're actually studying. You're actually taking it all in. And then it gives you, it's like if I would just use these two verses of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, because you'd be very surprised if you look at the index at the end of this little section of like 200 pages of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's commentary on these 12 items. So there's literally like 3 pages of verse after verse after verse. It would take some time to actually study each and every one of those verses like I just did. But I love doing that because then I actually, either I've read it before or it was many, many years ago since I read it and now I'm reading it again and now it's embedding itself into my consciousness, into my mind, into my memory banks because I've heard the story once, twice, 3 times, and now I'm hearing it in a certain context. So just to encourage, it's good, yeah.
This was just something we were wondering. We've been, not as much since Jagavan has been done, but been reading Chaitanya Charitamrita and Srila Prabhupada's purports and just being astounded by how many verses he includes in so many purports. And I didn't know whether Srila Prabhupada wrote those purports while he was in the West or while he was still in India.
Oh no, in the West as he was traveling.
Because then he probably didn't have all of the references. Prabhupada just knew.
Well, here's the thing. Srila Prabhupada, when he was translating Srimad Bhagavatam, he had a particular, very thick Bhagavatam he carried everywhere. Okay? And that Bhagavatam has like 10 different acharyas' commentaries. That's what's being translated now. In Vrindavan, there's a whole group of devotees from ISKCON, and they studied Sanskrit underneath Gopi Puranadana, and now they've been working on this project. I think they call it the Matsya Project. But I have one of those books with me, and they're translating each of the commentaries. So what Prabhupada would do is he'd read especially prominent commentaries that are particularly Sanatana Goswami, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Jiva Goswami, 1 or 2 others, Sridhar Swami. But Prabhupada would look at the references from the acharyas and then he'd write his purport. You see? I'm talking about Bhagavatam first. Now in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is a copy printed, I think, by Gaudiya Math that has both commentaries of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And that's why in Prabhupada's purports you see him saying that Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Amrita Pravaha Bhashya commentary says this, right? Or then he's quoting from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur verbatim with quotation marks for a few sentences, something like that. But what Prabhupada has done is he's read their commentary, maybe not in every single verse, but so much, and I've heard this from devotees who were doing some translating of those commentaries, that Prabhupada sticks to it very closely. So like, all verses that are being quoted, he's probably getting that from Bhaktivinoda or Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. They quoted those verses, you see. And then Prabhupada's deciding how much of this should I include in my purport, because he doesn't want to make it too long. But in some places, especially the first volume, like you've been reading the first volume, and these long chapters about Nityananda Tattva, or like that. There's so many shlokas and long purports, and a lot of that he's getting also from Jiva Goswami. Because Jiva Goswami is being referenced by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and then Prabhupada also has the book of Jiva Goswami's, or it's being quoted in Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's purport. So then he quotes that, and then continues his commentary. That's how he did it.
It's all very amazing.
I know. Very, very amazing. And this is all done at 12 midnight till like 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, you know. Prabhupada would take rest, then do that, and then do his japa, and, you know, then come out, go on his morning walk. He didn't come to the Mangal Artik. He had his own morning program in his room, and then he would come out for the morning walk, just like Gurudev came out for his morning walk. But like Gurudev's program was more translating, especially on his retreats, he was spending quite a few hours every day, something like 2 or 3 hours in the morning, sometimes in the afternoon, a bit more like that. And Gurudev also completed so much he was able to accomplish, you know, in his final years. And at that time he was traveling everywhere. But he had so much facility of the group that traveled with him, and he even had an editor. And Prabhupada also brought an editor with him traveling, you know. But it was more rustic, actually, in those days, you know. And but somehow, Srila Prabhupada, the devotees back, I don't know, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, they submitted to the Guinness Book of World Records the achievement of Prabhupada, and he was actually listed in the book, almost the most prolific author. And I don't know whether that's in modern times or what, you know, but what he did was astonishing. 12 years, you know, and not including his first chapters, first canto of Bhagavatam that he just did on a very bad typewriter, and going back and forth to Delhi to get it printed, and through the hottest months, you know, unbelievable heat in the middle of the summer, and he's writing for 3 years. He worked on this before he left. He worked on the first canto. So those purports are so golden. It's unbelievable. He hadn't even yet come to the West. But when you read those purports in the first canto and how Prabhupada is so deeply absorbed in giving this message to the English-speaking public. Of course, he had already spent a number of years during his householder years writing articles in English. He was practicing, you know, and then also publishing and distributing Back to Godhead and a couple of other publications, you know. But he, you know, then when he set himself to the task of making the whole first canto, 3 volumes, astonishing feat, no money, practically, you know, like a beggar. But he pulled that off. Krishna made all the arrangements, you know. And when you read that, and I tell you, when I joined the temple in 1970, that's all we had. The new volumes of Bhagavatam hadn't yet been printed. They didn't start till a few months later of printing the second canto, you know. And they did that chapter by chapter. They made small books of each chapter because they're going so slowly, you know. But we were reading from this very same volumes that were printed in Delhi by Prabhupada, and that later on Prabhupada asked Gurudev to complete, because there was a whole bunch more there, and Gurudev did that task for Prabhupada. He actually completed all the printing, went to the printers, and Gurudev said that he became sick also, because there was a lot of dust, and they had been sitting for months, and you know. But he did that. He completed, got them printed, shipped them, and they arrived in New York or LA or wherever that was. And when we came with Gurudev into Prabhupada's room in 1996, the first and only time Gurudev went there, in LA, Prabhupada's room in LA, which is upstairs. You ever go there? Above the temple room, above the deities practically, right there. So they had in glass cabinets the 3 volumes. And Gurudev saw that. And he was being kind of like guided by one ISKCON sannyasi. And they really didn't want Gurudev to sit down and start talking. But Gurudev stood there and he said, "Oh yes, these are the books that I sent to Swamiji. Here it is, you know." So anyway, the whole story of how Srimad Bhagavatam manifested, it's like talking about an incarnation of Krishna who appeared. How Srimad Bhagavatam manifested through Srila Prabhupada, and now to the whole world, you know. And now it's continuing, and they're going further and getting all the commentaries of all the acharyas. It's all happened. It's all completed, you know. Or at Gaur Premanandi, I really went on long this time. Vancha kalpatarubhascha kripa sindhubheva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Can you lead the artik?
Yes.
Okay, good.